Hey friends, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. We got ourselves a custom carts club car that is completely dead. Need to do some battery replacements on it, and I think we're going to go ahead and do a lithium conversion on this thing. Pretty nice looking cart. Let's get this thing in the garage so we can work on it. So I ordered one of the kits from Big Battery, not sponsored. Let's see what they gave me. A set of cables. Looks like a bus bar. Love note. Gauge, and I'm guessing that's a shunt so that I can, pull it across there and it'll pull off the power without being in line. I want a 48 volt charger. And one really heavy battery. Got a reset button and a power button. Breaker to stay on at all times, including charging. Do not use breaker as an on-off switch. Falcon Elite 48 volt, 3.1 kilowatt hours, 48 volt, 61 amp hour capacity. And then we want to try to get this in here. Won't need that charger anymore. And 4 12 volt batteries. Yeah, it was going to cost about $1,500 I think to change out these batteries. Think about $300 more and we got the full lithium kit. So right off the bat I figured out that I've got some 12 volt circuit stuff in here that is going to need to be powered back up, and the kit doesn't have provision for that. So I picked up a converter off of Amazon, and it's on the way. This is 48 volts in series, so this is a 12 volt, 12 volt, 12 volt, 12 volt. Coming from the motor, you have a positive, then this negative runs to the positive of this battery, the negative of this one runs to the positive of that battery, the negative of this one runs to the positive of that battery, and then the negative runs over to the motor, meaning in series. In parallel, it would have been negative, 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 positive, 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 positive. So we've got a series set of batteries that are going to be coming out, and we're going to be putting in a 48 volt single battery, which means that all of these spare cables are going to come out of the play, and all we're going to use is the red going to the motor and the black going to the motor. Let's get the positive disconnected off of this thing. The switch is in the toe position. There's some instructions there that say it has to be in the toe position for you to do anything with the batteries. And like I said, I've got a 12 volt source that came out there, so I'm going to pull it to the side. I noticed that I've got 12 volt lights and a 12 volt cigarette lighter on here. I'm going to be taking some of that stuff out of the, well, not taking it out, I got to rewire it obviously. Quite a bit of corrosion right there. Let's go ahead and just start taking all of these cables off of here. Let's get the hold down brackets out of the way, 1/2 inch deep well. So there's a few ways that you can mount this battery. I opted to go with having the battery front facing this direction and having taken up the rectangle part, the long part of the rectangle, coming from side to side. Doing that, one side of tabs has to be facing in, the other side of tabs gets to face out, so that I can access the screw afterwards. So these have to be fastened before I set this in there, and then I'm going to have to put the screws in from the outside, and then these screws, like I said, because they'll be facing this direction, I can access the screws from that way to fasten it through. So because of that, I opted to not use the self-tapping screws that they provided, but I opted to use these riv nuts. Trick nuts, blind nuts, you call them several things, right? Yep, that's perfect. So 23/64. See it mashed in there pretty well. Let's go ahead and get one more of them on here. This is a really cool tool. I'll try to remember to link it in the description. Basically, you can add a nut to anything and have it very low to the surface. Alright, so this is how I did this side. I had to take a little bit of aluminum off of here for the Dremel tool so that the bolts would fit. Got those two sides put in. The L brackets come down and go in, and then they attach to those riv nuts I was talking about. Then they supplied me what appears to be a couple of number 2 tech screws, TEK screws. That's what it looks like anyway. I'll see how these hold. If they don't, I'm going to drill and do the exact same thing I did on the first side. That's definitely not going anywhere. I know that I want the positive coming in on this side right here and the negative on this side over here. I thought maybe if it was between these two, it might protect it a little bit. So I drilled a couple of holes in the block here. And I'm going to prop it up on the frame so that the screw goes right through the rib on that frame. And then on this side, the taller angle iron back here, or it's actually the angle aluminum, I guess, the L of the support. Yeah, it's pretty solid. I think we're going to put the charger right over here. It's a waterproof charger that kind of centers everything, and it looks like you might even have enough room to put a beer cooler right over there under the seat. All right, so the old charger that we're taking off of this thing had a 110 volt plug. You set the charger somewhere, you know, out in the open or on this floorboard, plugged it in, and then it had this adapter plug that plugged in right there. The new design has a waterproof charger. That charger is going to be mounted somewhere inside the cart here. It has a plug so that we can hook up the battery all the time. And then it has a 110 volt plug on this end. You can do a couple things. You can cut this off, put another adapter, things like that. What I did was I bought especially since this isn't mine and I didn't want to take any liberties with it, I bought a replacement plug. So this right here has a female 110 on one side and then a male 110 on the other side. The male 110 should replace this, and then the female part of the plug will come out on this side over here, and we'll tie them all together. So let's get this thing unboxed. hoping that this outside dimension is close to this so it'll fit and hide the hole that's going to be left behind. You got a lot of packaging. Let's see. So again, female on one side, which will be inside the cart, and then we've got the male part that's going to be sitting right there, and they are almost an identical match. And it also has a weatherproof plug for the outside of it. So nice. It's exactly what we're looking for. Let's get rid of this old charger because we don't need it anymore. Let's take these screws out. I've got to disconnect some wires on the back side of this thing. Let's see, the red wire is one of them. Don't need to disconnect that. I've got a fuse, a jumper, and a negative wire that goes over to a control box back here. And cut these two leads. Of course, none of the holes line up because the other one had 4. This one's only got 3. Try to hold it in place. Run the 3 screws into the plastic, and then see how they line up with that piece of metal, and see if I can use that as a reinforcement. One screw is in healthy plastic, the other 2 are going through the plastic and through the metal. So there's the front plug. Come into the cart. Here's the other end of it. We're going to wrap it up, make it dressed up nice and neat. I mounted the charger to the frame rail so that the heat sink and everything is facing to the inside, so that way any kind of splashing and stuff that occurs at the tires hopefully stays on this back side. This is a waterproof charger, but anyway, it stays in the cart. And then this right here is my power cord from the charger. We're going to be plugging it directly into this front space over here, so that when you plug in, it's actually charging up this charger. And then this will stay hardwired onto the battery. So no more extra charger carrying around, a little bit cleaner install. Let me clean up these cables, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so I've got the charger mounted. The supply power line runs down here and makes that connection through here, and then runs up, and you guys saw me mount this part on the front. There is a shunt that got installed. So this right here is one side of the shunt. The B- side goes over here to this block. The P- side goes over to the motor. That's the negative side of the motor. This right here I mounted to the frame with 3 out of 4 screws. And that brings me to my complaints that I've got. Number 1, when I was tightening up this cable onto this power block, this little screw that they mounted with, it only had about maybe 2 or 3 threads, and you can see why. It's literally not long enough, even if this was a piece of flat plastic or flat metal. So it just ripped right out of there. So they used the wrong hardware to fasten those down. Number 2, the cables. So they made a mounting bracket for this power supply. The holes for that bracket are directly in line with the cables, so you can only use one of the 2 mounting holes on each side, unless you get very creative like I had to do, and many swivels and wobbles, things like that. And number 3, this shunt block, it's a piece of plastic. The only way for you to get it out of there is, or that I found to get it out of there, is either pry the heck out of it, or do what I did and basically take off the nut and the bolt, get everything taken apart, fasten it all while it's all apart, and then put the backside into the plastic, and then use a pair of channel locks to snap it into place. And that plastic doesn't really want to move to be able to do that, and I can't see any other way to fasten that thing. And then this piece of plastic has 3 mounting holes, really small, and it doesn't seem to fit suit with anything else that they've got mounting wise. Everything else has got large holes for mounting to metal frames and whatnot. That right there, unless it's supposed to be mounted to the dashboard somewhere, and which wouldn't make sense for the length of cables that they gave me, it needs to be mounted under here somewhere. And the screws that they gave you for it means that you'd have to make something and put it in there. So basically I just tie wrapped it into place and wedged it in place so it can't move. Next thing I'm going to be working on is I grabbed a 38mm socket, which was about the right diameter for the back side of this. I plan on putting it right here. This light is going to be replaced by this gauge. So I'm going to take that light out and I'm going to cut a hole. Then I'm going to use a Dremel and get this cut out nice and clean so that this can snap in, and go ahead and get this mounted. Alright, so I used a 38mm socket to draw this hole. Obviously you need to check yours because the wall of the socket would possibly be different. This light has got 2 tabs on it. I just squeezed those from the other side and pulled them out. I'm just going to cut this wire right here and tuck those back out of the way. And back here it feels like it's all plastic. There is some wires back there that are somewhat close, so I need to be careful. It feels like you can pull these 2 tabs out right here, but I'm going to use this bracing. I'm going to leave it mounted so that I can use the Dremel tool and try to gently cut all this out of here. Get it so I can see what I'm doing. Now, let me get this cleaned up and I'll bring you guys right back. There you go, through the magic of video editing and about half a dozen tries of test fits. I got the hole where it actually sits in there really nicely. Drops in just like that. On the back side, there is a hold down clamp. So you take off this wing nut, and I'm going to fasten this on the back side and then use the wing nut to tighten it up so that this piece of metal pushes against the back side of this, and then this lip here pushes against the inside of that. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I put the extension cable on there. So let's get that fastened. And I'm going to go ahead and tape these up. Probably not necessary, but I just want to tape it up. Run this wire in through here and grab it and start fishing it through. And I think I'm going to want to pull this off so that I can put this metal piece on there, because I don't think I'll be able to get both my hands up in there to get this on. So let's see what it takes to get these off. Probably all I need to be able to get this in there. So it looks something like that. That piece of metal fastened on the back side of that plastic. Don't need all that extra plastic. Just fasten on there just like that, so that wing nut puts pressure on this metal tab to hold this fastened in there. I took one of the leads, so I'm coming off the negative of the bus, and I'm coming off the positive of the bus. Follow that out. That connects up to one of these connectors, and then the charger coming up from here goes over to this connector here. I'm going to join those two together, and I'm going to dress them up and put them right into here. I also fastened what's going to be the battery lead from here and here, follow it over, And that's this connector right here, which is going to go to right here. Got the battery cable dressed up, and it's going to fasten up just like this. I don't want to hook it up just yet. These spare wires are all my 12 volt stuff. I've installed a 48 volt to 12 volt adapter. I've run the power and ground up to here, and this ground wire right here, which is going to attach over here to this bus bar. Dressed up the cables. I would recommend using some sort of a split loom to protect the cables while they're going down the road. I did wrap up this side. Ignore my 12 volt stuff here for right now. So this right here is the 48 volt battery. You can do a disconnect if you had to, because the battery is going to be plugged in all the time. And then of course the charger. I'm going to get the rest of the lights and stuff hooked up and get all my wires hooked up. Basically all my 12 volt stuff is going to be coming back to this connection right here, which is not going to be tied to my 48 volt stuff. So this right here is my positive, just 12 volts coming off of this adapter right here. Okay, got it all wired up. Battery cable coming out. Battery cable goes over to the bus bar. Bus bar goes to a wired connector over to the charger. Got my low voltage stuff in the middle right there. All my fuses are right there in the middle. Connected up some exterior lighting. That's a relay for that front light. Everything's really solid. Got a low voltage transformer, so 48 volt to 12 volt step down transformer. The power supply is connected in right there. Oh, I don't know if I showed you guys. So the shunt, there's a red wire going to the shunt, like a sensing wire, and that comes back and connects over to the same hot side of the bus bar back here. And the other part of the wires, that goes up front to that dash right there. And then that red switch y'all might not have seen before. I actually installed an extra floodlight up on the front of this thing. Put it right up there. Give a little bit more illumination. Let's see what this thing does. So I'm all plugged in, powered up, 53 volts. Okay, once you've got a fully charged battery, it says to change the amp hour settings. So we're going to change over to amp hours. I'm going to press and hold that button for 3 seconds. It started out at 100. I'm going to change this down. It said this is a 61 amp hour battery, and it said to take it down to 5% under that. So I'm going to say 55 amp hours. Let's say 55 and a half amp hours. So 10%, something like that, to give yourself room. And then press that amp button to set it. Let's go back to volts. So it is a 42 volt battery, 48 volt, but it said minimum capacity was 42 volts. Okay, so I made it 100%. So right now it's set at 100%. 55 amp hours is what I have set as my full capacity, and right now it's pulling 25 milliamps roughly, and I've got 55 amp hours capacity and voltage. Right now I'm sitting at 58.49 volts. It's bouncing around. I think it's because that charger's on, and the charger's cycling on and off, on and off. So let's get this thing unplugged and give it a try. Let's reverse. There we go, golf cart conversion to lithium. She runs a lot better now. Hope you guys got something out of the video. Appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out. No! Ah!